Demand response helps to stabilize the grid. It reduces reliance on fossil fuel plants and ultimately enables more renewable energy to power the grid. Sympower is a leading flexibility service provider in Europe. It works with commercial and industrial businesses and energy companies to enable them to participate in energy balancing markets. Joining me is Cinzia Alberti to talk about demand side flexibility. Hi, Cinzia. Welcome to Reimagined Energy.
Hi, Maria. It's a pleasure to be here.
I always ask this to any guest that comes on, and I like to always know about their renewable energy story. So what's your energy story and what led you to Sympower?
Yes, so my energy story started, I think, around high school, where I really became aware of the problem of climate change. And that pushed me to study actually energy engineering because I really wanted to work in the field of renewables. And that's how I started my career. And back in 2019, I really saw such a strong political push from the European Union around setting targets for renewables, setting targets for fighting climate change, and that was also helped a lot by the Friday for Future movement. And basically, I realized how powerful policy is, and there I realized, okay, I really want to make an impact in that field. I really want to influence the policy work. And so fast forward, I landed in Brussels, which is really the place to be at the EU level if you want to work in that field. And I started working on the topic of demand side flexibility. I learned that consumers can adjust their electricity consumption based on market signals, and basically I learned everything about flexibility. And then this is how I arrived to Sympower, where I work in the public and regulatory affairs team.
Tell me, so leading into that, tell me about the work you do at Sympower.
Yes, sure. So I work in the public and regulatory affairs team. The mission of the team is to monitor everything that happens around policy and regulation, monitor every developments. We also contribute to positions in power on key policies, and we promote our position through advocacy, both at European and at national level. And we also support the expansion of Sympower to new countries where the regulatory developments are still forming, where the regulatory framework is still forming. We often say that Sympower is born regulated because the business model is really dependent on regulation and policy, and so we have a big impact on that, and it's very key to work on this topic within Sympower.
Can you share some success stories that involved, where you use collaboration and working with shareholders, and tell us what the results were?
Yes, so we are very proud of the work we did in Greece. A few years ago, when Sympower decided to expand to Greece, the TSO so the transmission system operator, was reforming the market and allowing independent aggregators, so players like Sympower, to play in the market. And the TSO at the time really trusted our experience, and we worked side by side with them, even if we were a new player in Greece. But because we have such a strong experience across Europe and we are a trusted partner, they also really trusted us. And so they formed the market for demand response in a very supportive way. And we keep doing this work in Greece. We engage in consultations, we send recommendations alongside very big players that have been there for a long time. So that's definitely one of the success stories at national level that we're very proud of. And when it comes to the EU level, so at the European level, we have seen very positive developments recently, both for demand response and in general for electrification of industries. 2024 was an election year, so we have now a newly formed European Parliament, a newly formed European Commission. So a lot has been done to set up the scene for the next 5 years, for this next legislative cycle. And one of these efforts was a report that came up recently from Draghi on competitiveness. This is a very high-level report where Draghi gave recommendations on how to increase competitiveness of the European market. And one of the recommendations actually touches upon demand and flexibility as a tool to keep the system costs in check and have a competitive uptake of renewables. So that's a very positive evolution to see the topic really rise to the highest of the agenda. And as well in the mission letter of the new energy commissioner. So we will have soon a new energy commissioner, and one of the mandates is to work on the topic of demand response, again as a tool to boost the rollout of renewables. So those two are very important high-level involvements that we saw.
It sounds to me like this is long-term work. It doesn't happen overnight.
Definitely not. We really sometimes plant seeds now, and we see the evolutions or the effects in months or years.
Right.
So policy work and regulatory work is really long term, but it could have a really great impact.
How has the conversation changed about demand-side flexibility in recent years?
It is definitely more talked about. It is a serious topic now. It is not reserved anymore to a few specialist people. I could say that we see a similar trend of renewable energy. Of course, renewable energy is a topic that is way much more known, and people are very aware of what it is. But we are catching up with demand and flexibility. I think that the energy crisis really gave a boost because consumers, citizens became really aware of the cost of their electricity when we had the energy crisis in Europe. And also the energy crisis put a lot of emphasis on security of supply and how we need renewables to avoid these type of situations. And demand and flexibility is really a tool to have more renewables in the system and also to bring down bills for consumers. So I think it is becoming much more popular.
I've seen this word or this sentence mentioned before, but it's renewable penetration. And can you explain what that is?
Yes, so we are witnessing a significant shift right now. We are going from a system that was designed to have a centralized electricity production and consumption, and everything was very predictable and rather easy. And now we're moving to renewables. So we are going to a decentralized system where renewables are intermittent and unpredictable. And therefore, the consumption of electricity also needs to adapt and accommodate this variability. Grids also have been built in the old world, and now they're not fit anymore for that. So there's a lot of stress on grids. There's a lot of challenges to also adapt how grids work with a decentralized approach and a decentralized system. And these grids developments are ultimately paid by consumers. So it is a very important and challenging topic.
How the transition to electricity, it doesn't have to be a financial burden. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And it shouldn't be a financial burden. Otherwise, we risk to not have it accepted by consumers and by citizens. So on the topic of grids, for example, grid expansion, grid investments are much needed for the energy transition. Nevertheless, they will cost a lot, and these costs are passed through electricity consumers. So it's really key that we do it in a smart way, and that's where demand-side flexibility really plays a key role. There are figures also from very recent studies that show that there can be savings up to 12 billion a year till 2050 in grid costs through flexibility. And this is a reduction of investment of around 18%. So it's very key that we use all the tools that we have, for example, demand-side flexibility, to avoid building new grids and to really utilize the flexibility that is already there on the ground and help consumers to keep their costs in check.
Transparency is it's essential to Sympower. I mean, it's very important to your company and your organization. Can you tell us the types of advocacy work that you are involved in?
We do a lot of activities to raise awareness and educate on the topic of demand-side flexibility, independent aggregation, especially in terms of what are the benefits that it could bring in terms of cost reduction, energy security, and in general, how important it is for the energy transition. We do this type of educational activities with different type of stakeholders, system operators, policymakers, but also NGOs or through public relations. We also put a lot of emphasis on figures. So we want to be as concrete as possible. So when we do this type of activities, it's important for us to stress the potential, which I must say is mostly untapped, of flexibility from industrial and commercial consumers. We estimate that there is around 190 gigawatts of flexible assets across Europe from commercial and industrial sectors that could be monetized and could be used by transmission system operators. That means that the potential is really big, and therefore the regulatory framework has to follow to really unlock this big potential. And ultimately, I would say that we do a lot of work both at national and at European level. The principles are similar, but the type of work is different. We have different approaches because as much as we strive in Europe to have a single market for electricity, the reality is that the market is very fragmented, and therefore we need to tailor our work, our advocacy work, country by country.
What's next for Sympower's advocacy and policy efforts? For example, what do the next 12 months look like for you?
So again, at European level, we have around 60% of new members of the European Parliament. So a big change that came out of the recent elections. So we see a big need to educate them on the topic, and in particular on the system benefits. What do I mean by that? We cannot have, let's say, a silos approach when we talk about demand-side flexibility. We cannot only look at the integration of renewables or the security of supply or the cost for consumers or the grids. but we need to have an holistic approach. And demand-side response can be really a tool to tackle all these challenges together. So it is important that we educate also these newly elected members of the European Parliament on the topic and the benefits that come with allowing demand response. At national level, we have a lot of work to do on Sweden, which is one of the most important countries for Sympower. The Swedish TSO, transmission system operator, is opening the market to independent aggregators and defining the role of the BSP. And this is a very important key topic for us. So we do a lot of advocacy at national level in Sweden for that, as well as we keep working on newly formed countries, expansion countries, as we call them, that have a new regulatory framework that we want to influence in the most positive way, so that the sector can really thrive and we can have a really level playing field for demand response.
Cinzia, it was a pleasure having you today to join me and, talk about demand side flexibility and demand response. I wish you and your team and everybody at Sympower all the best. And let's see, how this all unfolds.
Thank you very much, Maria. It was really, really great to talk with you.
Thanks for listening in today. By the way, this podcast is sponsored by Smart Energy Halifax. It's an event that's held each spring here in Halifax, and it has wonderful speakers from all across Canada to talk about renewable energy and all the exciting things that are happening in the industry now. I'm your host, Maria McGowan. Please hit subscribe. Make sure that you leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you, or even be a guest. Let me know. My name is Maria. Thanks for listening in.